So this announcement comes out. Hunter Dickinson is coming back. I'm not as plugged in. Even as the casual Michigan fan, I'm not as plugged in. I don't know like where their percentage was on expectation or what, but we'll start just with the expert, Mr. Anthony, who it's great to have you back, by the way, man. Welcome back to some iteration of our content. Were you surprised? Were you surprised by this? I mean, are Michigan fans surprised? Were you surprised? What's kind of the initial reaction here from you guys?
Not 100% surprised. I think that the expectation was that he would maybe test the waters again, but that we had gotten word, us, at the Wolverine, we'd gotten word about probably around the time Michigan football spring game. There were whispers that Dickinson had signed a 1-year lease for an apartment in Ann Arbor, which, you can always take that with a grain of salt. I mean, I think it was Chris Hinton from the football team did the same thing back in the winter, and then he obviously moves on to the NFL, and he's subleasing to Olu Oluwatimi now, the center that they'll have. So it's not always like a one-to-one thing, but it felt like there was a point earlier. It was probably in February or so. We had a media session with Phil Martelli, and it was just after Hunter Dickinson had come back from COVID. And Martelli had basically said something along the lines of, they had had a conversation of late where he was feeling pressure because he felt like in the preseason, he was kind of all in on saying it was his last year at Michigan, and maybe that there was a chance that he could come back. And, what we're seeing with him now, I think, is this new trend in college basketball with, listen, if you're a second round guy or you are a fringe guy, the better thing for your brand right now is maybe to cash in on NIL, and NIL is a big driver behind this. He's earning quite a bit of money there. I don't know how it compares to NBA G League or what a second round contract would be from the NBA, but NIL is a big deal here. And I think he's probably going to clean up here for at least one more year. We'll see what happens moving forward, but not 100% surprised that he came back, and it's huge for them because that is, whatever you feel about where Michigan basketball is or what this program will be next year, this guy's your linchpin, and he's the piece you build around. And, in terms of an expectation standpoint, I think, I'm sure we'll get into that here in the conversation, but everything else can kind of branch off of this decision now, which I think is huge for them.
Yeah, I think that's all well said. I think the NIL is such a game changer because the thing is, people say with these kids, I remember when Kalen Lucas was in his senior year and coming back and had a miraculous return from the torn Achilles, and sort of the Michigan fan taunt was like, oh, this guy's not going to the NBA. We'll see him in NBA, Europe, if that wasn't even a thing anymore, but like one of the Spanish leagues or in Lithuania. And then I used to kind of make those jokes too. And you look up what some of these leagues pay. I'm not saying they're NBA salaries, but some of these guys are like Jahlil Okafor's over there making like $400K a year or something like that. It's like, that's a lot more than most people are making. You're in the top 1% by a long shot. So like someone like Dickinson before NIL would say, look, even if this NBA thing doesn't work out, Dickinson would be a stud in some of those leagues. I know because I watch them because they're on at 2 a.m. and I'm up studying and I'll gamble on one live and then like come back to it an hour later. Like he'd be awesome in those. So he would have that sort of fallback where maybe he does go. If it doesn't work out, I can just leave. But now with the NIL thing, I think that has been a game changer. So you feel like if NIL isn't in place, he might be gone, or it would have at least increased the likelihood, right?
Oh, for sure. I think it's a huge part of it. I mean, this is all NIL. It's all your brand now and what's best for your brand. And, if Hunter Dickinson wants to keep, selling his, big Dickinson energy line of clothes, or there's an NIL deal in Ann Arbor that he can profit off of, like you're not going to get that by playing for the Sacramento Kings G League team, right? There's so much more brand exposure that comes with that. And making money and increasing your earning potential, which is, it's fascinating to me because the argument for years has been, and it's usually the same person having the same argument, which is college basketball is ruined because these guys don't stay anymore, and money is ruining college basketball. Well, now both of those things are kind of, meshing together where these guys are staying, they are making a ton of money. And I ultimately think, and I'm on board with all of it, obviously, but I ultimately think that this will wind up being a good thing for the sport as a whole, because you won't have those fringe guys just saying, well, I'm probably as good as I'm ever going to be. It's time to go to Europe or time to go play for, the Grand Rapids Gold or whatever it is. So yeah, this is huge for him. I tend to believe, and this isn't to say that Dickinson doesn't have things he can improve on. I think he can improve defensively as a rim protector. I think there's probably a little bit of room for him to put a little more muscle on his frame, which is crazy to say by a guy that's 7'2", 260. But I think that he's probably pretty close to a finished product. And when you talk about what it means for Michigan as a whole, I think what it means for the program, and I think I sort of hit on this a little bit earlier. You have that number one guy in place, and then their ceiling is dictated on what everyone else that comes back gives them. I mean, Caleb Houston didn't have a great freshman year. Musa Diabate was all over the place. And as we record this, I mean, we're an hour and a half away from the NBA draft deadline, and we haven't heard anything from those guys yet. So I tend to believe at least one of them is coming back. It's kind of been back and forth, but and everyone just taking that leap internally, like Hunter Dickinson, he put up 18 points a game. He sort of flew under the radar. I think in a lot of ways he was better than he was last season when he was an All-American, but that supporting cast was a little bit lesser. And that was a young basketball team. And for whatever reason, like his stock kind of got knocked for it. But I thought he was outstanding this year. And the fact that he's back now, again, it just sets that baseline of we have this guy. Here's how we push it forward from here.